Hello, adventurers. I am Dungeon Master Roy with Dark Alchemy Limited. Tonight I'm joined by my fellow Dark Alchemist, the Dead Professor,
Good evening, everybody.
and Todd Putnam, the Creative Adventure Tables Facebook group.
Hey everyone, how are you? Great to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on, Todd. We found you online on Facebook. You run a Creative Adventures table group, and we will put those links down below. And there's just a ton of information on tables for Dungeons and Dragons and other adventures. And you have over 50,000 followers, and I definitely want to talk about that. But first, since we are a Dungeons and Dragons channel, we'd love it if you could tell us a story at some time in your sordid D&D past.
Excellent. So one time when I started a campaign, the characters was still level 1. It was the very first mission. And I gave them this session where they were going into a town and they thought they were going to go talk to a captain on a ship and do some negotiations and, some low-level player character stuff. But the ship, of course, as you can see in the beginning, that is the picture from that actual session. The ship, of course, is at the dock. And I decided to have a Teresk come up from out of the water, kind of like Godzilla does. And by the way, I actually had I had a sound recorder that recorded Godzilla's voice, so that when I hit the button, it made that same roar. So when the Teresk came out, I had the nice audio to go along with it.
That's awesome.
So the Teresk comes out and starts stomping through the village. Now, obviously, level 1 characters are not going to successfully fight a Teresk. No question about that. But previously, when they were walking through the town in the beginning in the session, there were these doom speaker priests out there, people that, the end times are coming and blah, 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 blah. Well, and they weren't causing any harm, but they were just, on all the corners saying the end is coming and, the dark gods will have their way and blah, 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 blah. Well, when the Teresk comes out, from their point of view, it's like the prophecies have been fulfilled, right? They're there at the moment. So they immediately trying to stop all the townspeople from running away. And so the player's job was to fight those, 0 and first level clerics, doom speaker guys, to try and then rescue as many of the villagers as they could and just get them out of the way of the Teresk. So they'd be going into a building and the Teresk is like knocking down. You can actually see some piles of rubble in the right behind the Teresk's tail. There used to be a building there. Now there's a pile of rubble. And as they would go through and smash down buildings, I would pull the building away, and I had piles of rubble to throw to add. And then you can see various people running around and stuff, and they would have combats with the doom speakers, some of whom would get stomped on by the Teresk itself, of course, right? Because for them, it's all part of fulfilling the prophecy. But yeah, I threw a Teresk at my level 1 characters, and how they survived, of course, was they ran towards. You see the little there's like a little tower that's sitting up just towards the head of the Teresk. I don't know if you can see like the little tower there. Yep. Well, there was a wizard that was up there, and he's booming some kind of big spell, and it's getting louder and louder. So the players are starting to run towards it because they think, oh, maybe the wizard's going to do something, right? Well, he did something, all right. He teleported his own tower away so the Teresk wouldn't touch it. He just all of a sudden vanished. So, of course, all the players are like, oh, my God. But he left the basement. And so the players were able to run to the basement, throw it open, and throw as many of the NPC townfolk down there, and then close the door and then just go under the ground in order to get away from the Teresk. Eventually he got tired because there was nobody else to eat, and he goes wandering off. And that campaign ended, and I've got pictures of that too, where the Doom Speakers were able to actually summon the Teresk. And the players, now that they were 10th level, which in the game that I play, Shadowdark, that's like 20th level in regular 5e D&D, they were able to fight the Teresk, and so that bookended it. It started with a Teresk and it ended it with a Teresk in that campaign. So everybody had a pretty good time.
Was it rampaging across the countryside for the whole campaign?
I'm sorry, what?
Was the Teresk rampaging across the continent for the whole campaign, or was it?
No, he would come and go. He would go into the water someplace, and after he would eat so much, and then he would get. And the last time that he showed up, it was because the Doom Speakers actually found a way to summon him. They actually sacrificed all their own lives, and the Dark God said, "Okay, we'll bring the Teresk out since you did that." And then the players were left to do it. We're left to try and to actually fight him off.
So the initial photo we're looking at here with our podcast listeners, everybody around a table from the Dungeon Master's point of view.
Yes.
And you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like 10 or 15 buildings, the Wizard Tower. You actually have a ship in the port, and you can see the ocean. You got the green water. You have the Monster Flight Club trees. You have the rubble. You have these different buildings. You have a nice battle mat. Everything's painted. And what was the Turesk actually from? What was that model from?
So I had been working with WizKids on designing some of their terrain sets. The sewer tile set, I worked with WizKids to get that designed, and then their new elevation one, did a little bit of design work for them to help them get that out. And they had sent me a whole bunch of prismatic paints, and then they wanted me to test some of those. And I'm like, well, I don't have anything to. So they sent me the Turesk. So I painted up the Turesk. They said you could just keep it. I'm like, okay. So my players didn't even know I had that mini. So when I pulled it out, it was like a complete surprise to them because they had no idea I even had it. So and that ship that's in the front is actually a damaged ship. You can see it's all broken up on the front end. It's all busted in half. I actually have the WizKids Falling Star ship in its wholeness, which is a complete ship in there. And then when the Turesk came stomping through, I pulled that off and I put the destroyed ship in to show that everything was the trail of destruction as the Turesk was going through stuff.
So just your opening story leads to a lot of questions. The first question I think I'd like to ask Todd is, in Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games in general, there's a argument, or not really an argument, but different ways to play. There's theater of the mind, and then the importance of miniatures on a tabletop. And I think I know the way you're leaning based on the amount of terrain you have just out and what we talked about in the green room. But let's have your theory on that. Where do you fall in the theater of the mind versus the miniatures and the tabletop terrain?
Where I fall is however you and your group are having fun is how you should play. I have my own preference, but I'm not some kind of elitist like, well, this is the right way to play or this is the only way to play. I've never had that mentality. When I first started with D&D basic expert set back in 83 and AD&D, it was all theater of the mind. And I've played hundreds, if not thousands of games, theater of the mind, and I had a perfectly good time. But when I got back into it a little after 5e came around, I got back into it and I started adding some terrain. And I just noticed that my players spent a lot more time leaning forward and looking at the actual what was going on as opposed to building dice towers or scrolling through their phone when it wasn't their turn. Yeah. Because when the terrain was out there, they could plan what they were going to do next when their turn came. Whereas theater of the mind, you can't really look and plan. You can think it through. Don't get me wrong, but it's just so much easier when you can actually see it. You go, oh, okay, that's where the stairs are. That's where the orc is. That's where the wizard is, right? So you can start making a map in your head of like, oh, okay, this is what we're going to do. So I fall heavily on the terrain area, not because it's the right way or the best way, but it's the way that I personally happen to enjoy. And the reason I enjoy it is because it allows you, the player, to spend more time doing the thing that you love doing most, which is play. Because when the terrain is there, when I pull the cover off and you can see what it is, I don't have to spend a 5-minute soliloquy describing it. I can just give you the basics of what you hear, a quick overview, maybe a disposition of a monster or an NPC, and you're off and running because everything else you can always see. You spend more time actually playing, and I actually work less as a DM because that aspect of it's all taken care of for me.
I find that often DMs will have the ability to give more information when the terrain is on the board because they don't have to give the visual aspect.
Correct.
Now, lots of DMs now are using soundtracks and sound bites, so they don't have to necessarily do the audio soundtrack. So now they can talk about temperatures and smells and those things that might have been super tiny details when you were in theater of the mind, because you were so busy describing the room visually that you kept to add in that extra sense of being there and feeling.
Absolutely.
I mean, hell, people have even gone now where they have scented candles for the room for, Dungeon Mine, and I don't really want to be in the Orc Lair, but yeah.
Yeah, they do have the candles now. So the next picture I put up was very interesting to me. It's a giant, a storm giant, or maybe a cloud giant.
Cloud giant.
And the miniatures are smaller, but the door is big. There's a spindle, like a yarn wheel. There's a couch and a chair, and there's big furniture. And the characters are all small. So I remember playing a long time ago against the Giants and playing the Theater of Mind for that. But to see this, it's just so immersive that it really sets the scene. And I was recently thinking how it might be challenging to do a giant scenario. but this really comes across just amazing, and leads into my question, Todd. How much terrain do you actually have that you could put out, a city scene versus like the inside of a giant's house scene?
I have been collecting steadily for the last 10 years. So I have a budget across that, and I shouldn't say I have a budget because it's not like I always spend X number of dollars, right? It all depends. But I just recently what I call completed my terrain collection. If there's something that I can't do at this point, it doesn't need to be in the story. I've just, I'm finally there, and I'm out of the spare bedroom space to put it in. It's all stored. If I want my jungle stuff, I've got a box that's clearly labeled jungle and swamp. If I've got city stuff with uptown and lowtown. I've got giants. I've got barbarians. I've got snow tundra. I've got fall. I've got summer. Anything you could think of. It's all in a set where I've got underwater and ocean stuff all in a box. Including like the minis that are most like obviously I don't need to store my shark minis separately. I might as well store them in with all the water terrain in that box because the only time I'm probably going to use them is there. So I pull out that one box and everything's right there ready to go for me. I don't know if I sent you any pictures. I don't think I sent you any pictures, but I can get you some later. I literally just finished rearranging my room and making it everything finally nice and neat. All the boxes are the same color, so it looks much better organized. But I think organization, for me at least, is the key to it, because if you can't find it fast enough that you don't lose the flow of the creativity when I'm building this stuff, then there's no sense in having it. So being labeled and organized is super important.
So you did say you took a break from D&D for a little bit, but you've been collecting for 10 years. So there was no break from collecting terrain?
No, I took a break because I started in 1983 and I played through to just the beginning of second edition. And then for me, high school ended and, everybody went their own ways. Picked up a little bit in the Air Force in the early 90s, 92, 94. I played a couple of games there. And then after that, I just kind of fell off of it. And I was out of it for most of third edition and fourth edition. And I didn't come back in until I think... 2015, I think. Yeah, like a year after 5e first dropped. And it was like one of my first few games that I got back into it. I was at a friend's house and we would alternate DMing. He would DM one session and I would DM another, just rotate that way. And we were just using dry erase mats, right, with colored magic markers. And, we had some minis, and that's great. But I had stopped by one of the stores and I saw some unpainted stalagmite minis from Reaper minis. And I was doing this one adventure. I'm like, for $20 or whatever. I threw those on the board. I just noticed everybody, when I put them out on the table like that, everybody just kind of leaned forward. They're like, oh, that is so cool. And the more stuff I added, the more people really seemed to enjoy it. And I noticed that I enjoyed DMing it more because it kept me in, and then it's gotten a little bit more than a couple of unpainted stalagmites, as you can see.
Indeed.
So,
one quick question going back a picture on that giant terrain. Was that dollhouse terrain or was that 3D printed?
That's dollhouse terrain. That's 1/12 scale dollhouse, and it's fantastic. That particular storyline was the player said that they wanted to create a magic item and a cloak of I think it was a cloak of levitation is what it was. That's right. I think it was cloak of levitation. And so I said, well, one of the magic things you're going to have to get is you're going to have to get clouds that are spun into yarn. And the only way you're going to get that is from a cloud giant. So there was an evil cloud giant that they had to fly up to and go and break in there. And that's why there's the loom wheel in there, because they actually had to steal off of it. But giant furniture, get it off of eBay or Etsy or stuff like that, or Amazon, 1/12 size. And it works out to be almost perfect.
That's a great catch, Professor, and a great tip. So dollhouse terrain, dollhouse stuff, and then fish terrain is some basic stuff that is not 3D printed, not WizKids, not Warlock terrain, stuff like that. So that's a good tip. Anything else, Professor, with that?
Yeah, and I think the door is one of the like fairy sets from Michael's or something like that. They sell for the gardens and stuff, and that's another great use of it.
Correct. Fairy garden is a fantastic thing for getting different types of terrain. And it's just finding what kind of stuff would match like what a cloud giant would have, right? Yeah. And I just try, so I've got a bird cage that you can see there, right? And I've kind of regal looking furniture for them because they're, they're the uppities of the giants. They're, So you can see there's a treasure chest there right behind on the other side of the wall from the dresser drawer and stuff. There's tables. There's, trying to get stuff so that when you get in there, you felt like, wow, a cloud giant actually lives here. I'm invading their space. Yeah. So how are we going to handle this?
Of all the different epic terrain that you kind of put out, I mean, we have ocean battles. We can see ships and, multiple ships battling on this blue mat, and then we can go into an epic dungeon with stalactites and stalagmites, and just to kind of show a few of the different things. There's a dungeon leading into a village on a big tabletop here. Does anything stand out that really, when you look back, you're like, wow, that was one of my best tables or one of my favorite tables?
And that's hard because I got to be honest with you. For me, my favorite table is always whichever one I'm building right now, because I'm in that creative flow. You know what I'm saying? The one that's behind me on my background picture, that one was a great one there that they had to go, and there were all these tests, and there was there's a test for greed and a test for lust. It was basically the 7 deadly sins that they were going through. And I'm sorry, I don't think I sent you that picture, but
I'm looking to see if I have it right now. Give me one. I think I have a review of it here.
You might. No, that's a different one, but that's another great. That was my first mega dungeon that I did. So that took me 7.5 hours to build. So
I guess
that would be one of my favorites.
Tell me about the mega dungeon. So for our podcast listeners, we have. Can't even guess the table size, Todd. What kind of table? What size table is this?
So it's not a single table. That's actually 4 tables. There's 2 6-foot tables side by side in the middle, and then where you see the bridge going across, right up closest to the camera, and the back of the demon's head that's sitting there, that big idol thing. That is where my DM's table is, but I just took the whole thing over. And then down at the very bottom is another player's table that's the end, and I took that over as well. I'm like, okay, we're just making the whole thing, and they're just going to use we're just going to use the kind of fold out trays that people eat on and stuff to put their dice and roll, blah, 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 and they'll work their way through it this way. So I literally couldn't sleep on a Friday night, and I didn't want to keep my then girlfriend, now wife. So she fully supports my hobby, thankfully, or I don't think our relationship could work. And I support her hobby of cooking, by the way. She's awesome.
That's great.
I couldn't sleep. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to see how big of a dungeon I can build. And I actually ran out of table space because I have way more terrain than just what's on this table. This is that right there. If you can believe it, is maybe 2% of the terrain that I have. If
everybody needs a hobby.
Yeah,
you are the hobby king. I think that's going to lead to my next question, but let me ask while we have this up. Sure. How is it to the game master, a dungeon master, a table like this, in order to basically track the traps, the events, and the creatures that are going on that table too? With a big table, with great tables come great responsibility, right? With great tables come probably a lot of background paperwork. To authorize those orcs and goblins to come out and those monsters to come out and fight the adventurers.
So I suppose it depends on how everybody's brain works, because everybody's brain works differently. For me, because I'm so visual, I can actually run dungeons like this with just a series of 3x5 cards, because as soon as I see the room, all of this starts covered with little either black poster boards or with black cloth. And that's the fog of war. And then when the player gets to the room, I uncover it. Okay. As soon as I uncover it, I remember what I wanted to happen in that room because I'm literally looking at it. In some ways, it's sort of like if I asked you to sing a song, never mind whether you can stay on tune or not, it's really hard to remember the words. But if you've actually got the song playing with the music in the background, you sing along with it just fine because you've got the preemptors that are reminding you exactly what comes next. Well, it's like that, except for it's visual. As soon as I pop that open, I have the preemptors that go, oh yeah, that's what happens in this room. This is the room where the carrion crawler's crawling along on the ceiling and he's going to drop down on him or whatever the case may be. Or this is the room that's got the trap door in it that, that's behind the bookshelf or whatever. And so all I need really is a 3x5 card that might happen to have some monster stats on it, or if there's some kind of clue that isn't physically visual in the terrain that I need to remember to say specifically to the players as a hook for whatever it might be, a note or something that's on a table or some piece of information that's vital for what they're going, the MacGuffin, as they say in the movie business. So I actually run my games with less paperwork instead of more, because I don't need it. So that also means I spend less time with my head down below my GM screen and instead looking up and interacting with the players more. So I like that benefit.
Professor, what do you think of this table?
This is outrageous. I mean, I've laid out my dungeon tiles, and I can about fill a 4x6 now between dungeon and cavern, and this is just mind blowing. I love the flow of it from the traditional dungeon to the cavern to the ice dungeon and back. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. So that leads us, Todd, into the question of the creative adventure tables. This is going to be a Facebook group, so you can find on Facebook Creative Adventure Tables, and we'll put those links down below on the YouTube description and basically everywhere we post this video. You have 50,000 plus followers. What inspired you to start the Creative Adventure Tables web Facebook page, and how did it kind of develop and grow?
So what inspired me to start it was I'm building my own dungeons, and for me, when I first started playing D&D Basic Expert way back in the day, the thing that I loved most about the modules wasn't even necessarily the stories that they told. It was the artwork inside that inspired me to tell my own stories, the visual aspect of it. And so when I jumped on, started creating physical, dungeons, laying out the tiles and all that kind of stuff, that also was the same thing. It inspired me to be more into the DMing experience, more into the, telling the stories. And what I did is I looked around. I'm like, well, you got companies like Monster Fight Club and WizKids and of course Dwarven Forge, who's the Ferrari of it all. They're selling all of this terrain in retail. Then you've got 3D print companies that are going and they're selling all kinds of STL files that you can download, and they've got Patreons that they've got thousands of people signed up, and they're monthly buying all these dungeon type tiles or whatever it is, or fantasy adventure tiles that they're printing out. And then you've got YouTubers like Black Magic Craft, who's got, 200,000 or whatever it is, number of people that are watching him teaching how to build. I was like, somebody's got to be building some freaking amazing tables with all this. How could they not be? And so what I decided to do is I'm like, well, I want to kind of be a gateway or a centerpiece for all of that, where everyone can come to get inspired. I don't care whether you're using Dwarven Forge. I don't care whether you're using WizKids. I don't care whether you're 3D printing or if you're crafting. What I care is, how do you use it once you've got it? Because that's really the question. Right. How many different ways can you come up with different things to use? Because somebody might have had a piece and they've used it once and they're like, and then they see somebody else using it, another unique, oh, wow, I never thought I could tell a story that way. And so you kind of unleash or unlock the creativity that people, for either stuff they already have or stuff they want to get for future adventures that they're trying to tell. And so all I did was I created the group, which was originally called D&D D&D Adventure Tables, is what it was originally called. D&D Creative Table Design was what it was originally called. And then the whole OGL thing happened. And although I'm not monetized, I wasn't monetized at the time, I'm not monetized now. I was just like, what? I'm just going to change the name because I don't want anybody looking over my shoulder. I don't know where this train ends. And I understand it. Obviously, it's all been changed now. But I was like, I'm just going to change it to Creative Adventure Tables because it's not really about the specific system. You could use this terrain to play Warhammer 40K. You could play Pathfinder. You could play whatever. So I don't really need to have D&D in the name. So I just changed it to Creative Adventure Tables. But all I did was I went to different Facebook groups that either had to deal with terrain or had to deal with, role-playing games. And I would just post pictures of my games, and then I would put a link to my Facebook group. And it took me 6 months to get my first 100 people. It was just drag it along. And I'm like, this thing, when I got to 100, I was like celebrating. I was like, oh my God, I finally got 100 people, right? It's ever. And then it just started picking up steam and then I added a feature where I'm like, okay, each week I'm going to take 5 of the best posts, not of mine, 5 of other people's posts that I think they did an amazing job. And it could be something they crafted. It could be something 3D printed. It could be something they bought, but the way they used it is just a beautifully immersive way, creative way for what they shared. And I make, the 5 featured weekly artists, adventure artists for the week. So you kind of get like a little shout out, right? So now, and then the community just started really rolling. And there was at its peak, I think we were pulling in almost 1,000 people a week for a couple of weeks. It was just rolling like mad. it's slowed down to maybe 100 or so every couple of weeks at this point. It's basically probably about between 50 and 100 people per week is what are coming in now. But it's already at 50,000, and for a D&D type group, that's literally in the top 10 for the vast majority of D&D things out there. So I think I'm kind of probably running into the limit of that's everybody who's going to be in it probably is, or pretty close to it.
Yeah. Some
absolutely.
of the tables that the group members put up are amazing also.
Absolutely. And that's the whole point of it. I'm like, I'm not the only guy making tables. Yep. So look at that. That's amazing. I'd play on that table. It's not mine. I'd love to play on it.
And again, that's another mix of systems. It looks like Dungeons and Lasers, I think it is, or Lasers and something with the thin walls, and then some WizKids and the WizKids Castle. So again, mixing all those sources together. Some of it's 3D printed, some of it's store-bought.
Yep. Yeah. Which way makes the most sense for you is the thing that matters.
Yeah, whatever works. I guess that's probably a Waterdeep, right? Is that the Yawning?
Oh, that's the Yawning Portal Tavern they sold. I don't know if that's what they're using it as.
What's that, Scott?
I don't know if that's what they're using it as, but that's what WizKids sold it as. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the actual the WizKids official one. But yeah, just laying it out. I guess some people want to just kind of play with the terrain. Almost, we talked about the Dollhouse terrain, but you're setting up a city. I was always interested when I was younger. It didn't go this way, but I grew up around the Star Wars era, Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s, of course. I wanted to work for Industrial Light and Magic and create those models, and I went a different career path. But in the background, my whole life, I was always have been creating, little buildings and painting little toy men. And right now, I'm painting a pumpkin golem and a pumpkin king, and I'm really enjoying, the miniature aspect of it. And even though it didn't become a business, I'm enjoying just the hobby aspect, the relaxation of painting and creating. Todd, in your case, how much of the actual painting you're doing? I know you buy some pre-made terrain and stuff, but the terrace you actually painted yourself. So you spend a lot of time painting too while the wife is cooking?
No. So I painted my first 700 minis, and then my eyes kind of gave out on me. So I ended up hiring a guy who does Warhammer 40K armies. So for him, painting stuff in mass is nothing. And I would just be like, okay, when he would get one done back, I'd be like, here's the next shipment of stuff to paint. Because for me, it was too hard on my eyes. After a while, I was like, it was giving me headaches and stuff. And I did the whole, jeweler magnifying glass and the whole everything. And I was like, and I also realized, and this is just me personally, I was like, I don't really enjoy the painting. That for me isn't what excites me. For me, I'm set and story design. That's what I love. I love the actual laying everything out that's going to tell the story. This is the city that you're going through, and this is what the story is going to be, and blah, blah, blah. Painting or crafting the individual building doesn't do it for me. That being said, there are people that it does do it for, and the stuff they create is fantastic. Like, these guys are legends. And if it wasn't for people doing those kind of things, I couldn't do the things that I do. So I celebrate whatever aspect of this you come into it from.
So what was the WizKids angle of it then? You said, did they actually hire you? You were doing some work for them? How did they find you?
So they didn't hire me. So at the time, and he's not with them anymore. He left the company about a year ago. Justin Zealand, I can't think of his last name now. But anyways, he was the CEO of WizKids. So not surprisingly, a lot of the terrain companies all of a sudden started piling into my group because, it's like fish in a barrel. You know what I'm saying? So Stefan Picorni, the people from Monster Fight Club, a whole bunch of the 3D print artists and stuff all started pouring into it because this is literally what the entire group is about.
It's their market.
And Justin Zirin, he reached out to me. He was like, hey, we got some projects we're working on. We were wondering if you could, spend some time with us and give us your thoughts on it. And they had a basic design of the sewers that they were going to do, and they sent me prototypes of it. And they gave me a couple of days to look at it, and then we had some Zoom calls together. And I'm like, look, this needs to change. This needs to go away. This is unnecessary, complicated. This, if you switch this, you're going to add value because you're going to add flexibility to the piece. You're going to be able to do blah, 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 blah. And then, this here adds value because it will speed build time. That's a value. The faster you can actually build everything together, that's a value to your game masters. There's different ways. I go, so, you have to decide, because obviously I don't know what the cost of your plastic is, blah, blah, blah. I go, but this is what I see. and then you on your backhand map that out versus. And so the dungeon tile set, it took them a good 2 years after I worked with them because they went through a number of iterations, but they finally got it out. And then they did the elevation one too. I worked with them briefly, very briefly on that. So stuff, stuff like that happens. I've not worked with Monster Fight Club as far as designing terrain. I've given them some ideas, but they've kind of stepped away from fantasy right now, and they go more towards the cyberpunk stuff.
Modern.
I think it is the
the
buildings
for superheroes, and then
yes. So they've done that kind of stuff. But they used to feature my work regularly on their Facebook posts. If you go to their Instagram page, you'll see a lot of stuff from me. Dwarven Forge has done that. A few from WizKids. So but literally it was just because the 50,000. I think when they first started piling in, we were around 20,000. They started all coming in and going, hey.
I want to get your last name right. How do you say your last name, Todd?
Putnam, Putnam.
So we can find you on YouTube at Todd Putnam. That's
yes.
TODDPUTNAM. And we can find you on Instagram at Todd Michael Putnam. But really, I mean, the main thing is, and we have this ticker going on the bottom of the screen, and we will add the links down below. Really, it's about the Facebook group, Creative Adventure Tables on the Facebook group. So I think most people our age are on Facebook. If the younger people are watching this on YouTube, join the Facebook group so you can see this. You post a lot of your personal terrain, and also everybody posts their own kind of builds and creative ideas. Do you lean towards a certain type of terrain since the advent of 3D printing? Do you enjoy 3D printed terrain? Do you like the Warlock sets? Do you like the Monster Fight Club? You don't work for anybody specifically, so I feel like you can kind of be a little biased upon what you actually personally like. I know you can choose whatever you want, but it's something you personally like, a certain company, a certain terrain.
I personally, my favorite is the Dwarven Forge because their color scheme all works together. Whether you get their sci-fi stuff or you get their swamp stuff or you get their dungeons and stuff, it's something about the tones. You can mix all those tiles together and it just flows seamlessly on the table. And the stuff is virtually indestructible. You don't have to worry about storage issues with Dwarven Forge. You obviously have to organize it correctly. But as far as like if you drop the box, nothing's going to break. I've got tile floors, and I can take a Dwarven Forge tile and I can throw it as hard as I want on the floor, and I don't have to worry about it breaking. Now, if I drop 3D printed, there's a chance it might chip. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So if you've got mass amounts of storage, the storage is easier with Dwarven Forge. That said, there's advantages and disadvantages. Dwarven Forge is obviously the most expensive, right? That's the most expensive one, but it's pull it out of the box and use it immediately. On the other end of the scale, there's the 3D, there's where you handcraft it yourself. So it costs you almost nothing. The styrofoam is dirt cheap, but what it's going to cost you is your time and your effort and your skill curve in order to get it to look the way that you want it to, and then paint it on top of that. So that's a maximum time, minimum money. And then in the middle is basically 3D printing. You got to buy the printer, which might be a few $100s. You're still going to have to paint it, which is still going to be so it's not as expensive as Dwarven Forge. And the more you print, the cheaper per tile it basically is. It's not as expensive as Dwarven Forge, but it's also not as fast as Dwarven Forge. It's more expensive than crafting, but it's also, you see what I'm saying? So it depends on what your inventory is what should work best for you.
Yeah. You've got 3 legs on your stool: time, talent, and money.
That's exactly it. Yep. Yeah. And then depending on your situation, that dictates the way you move forward.
Yeah.
Some people are able to do amazing stuff with the pink foam from Home Depot and the foam.
Absolutely.
It is pretty amazing. And we come from a D&D background, but we also played Warhammer 40K and some other games. Mm-hmm. And really, the original first hill was made of pink foam, I think. We're not cyber playing, and then you see the castles and stuff. But we 3D print some stuff. We have some licenses to 3D print. We have a little store, so we do enjoy the 3D printing. But yeah, I mean, some of the stuff is so easy. DM Evanson, a shout out to, he's not on tonight. He's playing a game. DM Evanson on Instagram. That's DM_EVENSEN. He's our forever game master. He has a huge terrain collection, not as big as yours, Todd, but he has a lot of Warlock terrain, and he's able to clip those together, and it works nice. And then he'll intermingle that with other things, and he's always trying to collect. We went to Gen Con, we're buying individual miniatures from WizKids and some of the older models. We came across an issue where when we 3D print, if you have a little falcon or bird and it's on like a little stand, that's hard to do. So you want a pre-made product. Sometimes the clear stuff You want something translucent. I did notice on some of your terrain, it's either super bright or you were playing with some LEDs. Have you gotten involved with LED or anything like that? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I do use LEDs in it. Almost all the LEDs that I have are from Dwarven Forge. In my case, I might have some that's from aquarium stuff. I can't remember. Or no, it's some from WizKids. I do have some LEDs from WizKids, but most of mine is from Dwarven Forge. But even if you're a crafter, there's guys like Wylock's Armory and Black Magic Craft that show people how to integrate, LEDs and stuff like that into their terrain. I also use fog on my table, actual, smoke machine fog for things like that. Oh, sure. And you can either buy that stuff or there's channels that'll tell you how you can make those things yourself or get some dry ice, depending on what the situation is. And all that stuff is sound. I use sound effects buttons that I order off of Amazon. It's just one little sound that you record. So I'll go through and I'm like, okay, this will be my carrion crawler sound. And this is going to be whenever my players die or get to 0 hit points, I actually have the Wilhelm scream on a button, and they don't say I'm dead. They hit that and they go, ah, and it makes that sound, right? It's from the famous movies. You've seen it in Star Wars and all the, Indiana Jones and all these different movies. So every time they hit the button,
somebody falls.
Right. Every time somebody gets to 0, it lets everybody know that there you go. So it just adds that sound effect to the game as well.
Do you have that link to a Stream Deck with the sounds pre-programmed, or is it
I don't. I literally just have the individual buttons, and the reason is, and I usually limit to like maybe 4 or 5 sounds per game session because because I don't want to be messing with something. I want to literally just go smash a thing and the game is still moving at the speed of thought.
I didn't even know that was a thing. I got to
just one-shot recorders.
Yep.
I got to check that out. Yeah, Scott, we got to look into that. That sounds.
Staples used to use it for their easy button. You could record anything you wanted on their easy button. It was just a big red button, so you put a recording on it and slam the button.
That's exactly. You can go on Amazon, do a search for easy button, and you'll find them.
Yeah.
I think Bert the Wizard needs one for his when he does a divination, some sort of oracle thing. I have a Divine Wizard of 5e. I'm really enjoying. We're doing the HC campaign, and with the 5th edition, you roll 2 dice at the beginning of the at the end of a long rest, and you can use those dice. Like I see the future. But I said to Dave, I said I'm a diviner. I want a little bit more. So once in a while, he'll give me a tidbit like, oh, you say this happens. I usually forget to say it until it's too late. But and then Scott, the dead professor here, in his game room, he turned to like a tavern. There's bookshelves and hidden shelves and stuff. But he has these lights overhead, and above me, he programmed it so it turns blue. So
all the other lights go out, and he turns blue.
Yeah. So it's usually a bad omen, but it's good. Any advice, Todd, for somebody starting out as a dungeon master? What do you consider I know it's there's a lot of different types. Is there a basic, go-to set? Like, what do you really need to start? Would you say, okay, make sure you have a bunch of doors, or, just have some stalactites, or make sure you have some hills or a tree set? What's some good starting out terrain for somebody new?
Sure. So the first thing I'm going to say is it always depends on the type of campaign that you're going to run. So obviously, if you're going to run, Icewind Dale type terrain or whatever it is, then you're probably going to want to buy yourself some snow trees and some, I always say focus on getting the terrain that you're going to use most often first, so you get the most bang for your buck, whether you're buying it, 3D printing it, or crafting it. The stuff that you use, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to get this for the big boss monster fight or whatever at the end of the campaign. So you're going to spend all that time collecting it or whatever it is, and then you're just going to use it once. Do it the other way. Do it where in a traditional climate or whatever it is, you're going to have lots of regular trees and some hills. You can never go wrong getting some trees and hills. And you don't need to have a full layout like I do. You can do what's called Ultimate Dungeon Train style, which is most of the board is empty, but you just have some set pieces that provide basically some mood. It just gives the general idea, okay, this is where we're at. The setting, and you can move it around and stuff. And then as you start to fill things in, your sets get to be a little bit more complex. But I would always say start with whatever you get. Maybe some basic dungeon tiles, whether you 3D print them or Dwarven Forge or WizKids, doesn't really matter. Some basic dungeon tiles, and then some outdoor stuff. And those would be the 2 that most people are going to use. But it really depends on what kind of campaign you're going to run.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. How about do you have a favorite monster you like to throw at your characters besides that giant Godzilla dinosaur?
I've only shown him at him a
monster?
couple times. Yeah. A favorite monster. I don't think I do. I like to mix it up pretty good. I like to keep my players guessing so they don't know what's going to happen next. I mean, mimics are obviously always fun, right? With, the door is a mimic and stuff like that. But like I said, I stopped counting at 5,000 minis, so I have tons and tons of different monsters that I can throw at stuff. I'm trying to think.
So you have 5,000 miniatures. In addition, and that's just miniatures. We're not talking terrain. This is just
Correct.
This is monsters and player characters and.
I probably have closer to 7,000 or 8,000 miniatures now. I stopped counting at 5, and just judging by the number of boxes, I think I'm probably up to like 7,000 or 8,000 minis.
I think you're inspiring the professor.
I just don't have the storage space. That's my problem.
Yeah, I've got one spare bedroom.
I had a basement that was going to be the game area, and that became a martial arts dojo during COVID because you needed somewhere to train. So I got a much smaller space in the garage.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I might try to make some storage space in my garage. It's not heated or air conditioned, but if I can maybe insulate the walls or make it like insulated box, I think maybe plastic and resin should hold up fine as long as it's not directly exposed. So Todd, when you're designing a table and you said, hey, I'm having a little insomnia, I'm going to throw down some terrain, do you have an adventure in mind, or do you kind of say, let me build a table, put the monsters out, and then write the adventure around it? Or are you going the other way? You have the adventure and then you're designing the table general?
Sure. So in general, like most people are familiar, there's two types of campaign, two styles of campaign. The first is the railroad, right? You go buy a book from Wizards of the Coast, and there's a book campaign, and you kind of, yes, there's some plot paths you can go on, but basically you're on a set of railroads for where it's going to go. And then the other one is like the sandbox style campaign, right? Where it could be, you go anywhere, you do anything you want anytime, you cast teleport at any time, and you could be in the astral plane, and then, somebody else casts a spell and you're at the bottom of the ocean, right? And all of that can happen in the same session. I do what I call a Carnival Cruise style campaign. And a Carnival Cruise is just like in real life, the Carnival Cruise ships, you can buy a ticket to almost anywhere in the world, right? You can buy a Carnival Cruise that'll bring you to Alaska, they'll bring you to Hawaii, they'll bring you to Mexico, to Brazil, you name it, right? So you can buy a ticket to anywhere, but once you buy the ticket and get on the boat, that's where you're going to go. Right now, once the ship comes back, you can always buy another ticket to go someplace else. So at the end of every session, I ask my players, where do you guys want to go next? Wherever they tell me they want to go, I design an adventure for that. That's where they're going to go the next session. Now, when they're done with that, I always leave a plot hook. Do you want to keep going down this road, or do you want to go do something else? Right. So at the end of the dungeon, there's more stairs down. If they want a next session, they want to keep doing some dungeon delving, great, you can do that. But if they decide, no, we want to go back to town, no problem. The next session will be going back to town. Or they want to, hire on with some privateers and go hunt pirates out in the ocean. Okay, go do that. They want a Spelljammer adventure. Fine, I can make that happen. So it's a buy a ticket on Carnival Cruise, or if you want to say it's a railroad where the players lay the tracks. It's the players say, this is where I want the train to go. Okay, this is where the train's going to go. So and then from there, it's just my head. For me, that's half the fun, is coming up with a whole new adventure that they haven't seen before. There's no way they can look it up in a book and cheat, right? There's no way they can go on the internet and they can find, it's all in my head, and they get to work through the Scooby-Doo mystery, so to speak. So that's my approach.
Are you mostly the DM, or does somebody else take a turn?
Yeah, I'm a forever DM. I had a friend we would alternate. I would play in his games, but he kind of decided to step aside and just stop playing games for a while. And so I'm back to forever DM mode, which is kind of fine with me. I enjoy the creative side, everything. I like playing the monsters. I like playing the NPCs. So I'm in that side of the campaign.
On your Facebook page, obviously you're the administrator. You run the page. What's the most unexpected thing or weirdest thing you've seen on there where you're like, oh, I wish I would have thought of that? Because people, I've looked through it, but you've watched this develop over the years with like the caring eye of a storm giant looking down at the people, right? Like seeing the stuff develop. Is there anything that really popped out? You're like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? That's awesome.
I feel bad not being able to give credit to the person who did this, but I don't remember their name off the top of my head.
Okay.
But they did a Spelljammer adventure where it was lifted up in there, and the clouds were all, floating around. It wasn't sitting on a table; they were all floating, hanging from and they had a light show inside of the clouds so that you could have lightning flashing all through it.
Like
It was
thunderstorm.
just stunning. Yeah, it was just stunning. And then I think it was that same guy that also did an endgame adventure against Tiamat, I believe it was, and he had Tiamat there, and then he had a whole bunch of lightning and clouds and stuff going on. It was just truly beautiful the way that he put it. I mean, it was a very artistic eye that he has when he created that. I was like, that is fantastic. Hats off to that guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anybody can join the Facebook group. It is private. You have to answer some questions. So obviously no spam, no bullying. Be nice. Try to post, post what's creative and stuff. You do allow a little bit of promotion on there. I read if you have a legitimate Kickstarter, then maybe contact you and post that stuff. But don't do any copyright. But it looks like from what I'm looking through, most people are just really into the aspect of sharing their creative terrain and building that up. In the green room, we did talk a little bit. This is a D&D channel. We mostly talk about Dungeons and Dragons. I just want to touch upon this. You converted over to playing a different system now?
Yes. So I was playing 5e for a few years, and then we switched to Shadow Dark, which is the bones of it are 5e. Without a doubt, and that's not my opinion. That's Kelsey Dion, the designer of it, says, "Oh yeah, the bones of this is 5e." So it's not like a hearsay type thing. It's she says that, but it's just more stripped down. Like, it doesn't have a skill system, okay, but it's got ascending armor class. It's got advantage and disadvantage, right? That kind of stuff. The stats are exactly the same. The bonuses for the level that they go up for either +1, +2, +3 is the same exact as it is 5e. So if you've played 5e, you can walk right into this, and there's nothing about it that's difficult, except for instead of a spell slot system, it's a much easier roll to cast. And it's basically you're hitting a DC of 10 plus the spell level. So if you're casting a 3rd level spell, you need to roll a 13 or higher. Roll a d20, add your spell casting. If you successfully cast it, then you still get the spell and you can keep recasting it again. If you fail, then you lose the spell and you can't cast it again until after. So you kind of have to do like a risk assessment of, is it really worth it to cast the Cure Wounds? Because once I lose that, it's gone, kind of a thing.
Done. But if you have some lucky rolls, you can get it off a few times.
Absolutely.
Does that game affect the terrain at all? It's pretty much the same, right? It's still a D&D system. And
absolutely. You could play anything on terrain. It doesn't matter. 28 millimeter is going to basically be the standard for terrain. It doesn't matter whether you're playing Pathfinder, Dungeon Crawl Classics, Old School Essentials, 5e, you name it. It's going to be 28 millimeter terrain for the overwhelming majority of that stuff.
1 inch is 5 feet.
Yep, that's exactly it. Although I will say in Shadow Dark, we don't do they just use broad ranges. So you have close, near, and far. So close is within 5 feet, near is within 30 feet, and far is anything past that. And so we're not like measuring out the exact. It makes gameplay go faster if you're not really super designed.
I'm not really familiar with it, but was that designed for the circular style map where you had different ranges in the outer ring was far, inner ring was near, and then you had a small ring that was close?
I think she took some ideas from. Well, I know she took some ideas from a variety of different places. I think she might have taken it from Runehammer. Had a game. I'm trying to think of it. Something card. It's IC something or other. It was a card type version of it. But anyways, it's the same concept of that, yes, which is just you keep the ranges very. If you're in this area, then any of your spell is going to land. If you're out of this area, then the spell isn't going to. You can make it to melee, and that it just keeps it so you don't. So you're not wasting your time, and you don't devolve into rules lawyers where I think if I went this way, you know what I mean, I could make the extra 5-foot step. It stops that, and it keeps the imagination flowing by keeping it more abstract.
I think sometimes people do like to count the boxes though, like exactly 30 feet away. Some people like a tactical game. One of our friends we were playing, they come from a world of Malifaux and some other these tabletop skirmish games. And what he said he liked about the terrain that we had on a table for some of the adventures, we were in the swamps of our world, Erendor, and they were going into their first real dungeon crawl. He goes, "Oh, this is cool. It's like a tabletop skirmish game, but every time we've played, it's been like a different tabletop skirmish mission."
Yep.
that you wouldn't normally get, because maybe the missions in Malifaux are like, A, B, C, D. You pick from these 4, and you just recycle those over and over for a tournament. Capture the flag, grab the stones, kill the enemy. But this one had like different missions, and when you see a nice set of terrain laid out, it kind of changes the game type. It's almost like a different board game every time.
Yep. And most of the terrain, and definitely in Warlock and definitely in Dwarven, the 5-foot square is built into the tiles.
Yeah.
So it's you can absolutely count. So that's why I say the terrain is basically independent of the system. If you don't need the 5-foot squares, then you don't need to use them. Otherwise, they're there for you. Yep.
Yeah. Do you have any traps on the boards, or anything to indicate like ruins, or this might be a trap or a secret door? I know you talked a little bit about covering for the fog of war. Or how do you feel about traps in general? And the only reason I ask is I had a previous conversation with a guest, and we got into a little bit of a trap conversation, and I'm kind of still interested in it because I do want to add more traps into my dungeon. I want to pick up that book. I think Grognar's trap book. I don't have it. So how do you feel about traps as a dungeon master, or on a terrain, or you put something in the corner, it's a little different color, and maybe they don't notice it. It's like, oh, stepped on the green, something's bad's going to happen.
Right. I think traps are fantastic. I have a lot of trap terrain. Dwarven Forge has a lot of stuff that you can literally pull the top off the tile, and underneath it is a snake pit or a spike pit. There's some. That. Oh yeah. And then they have ones that no, I'm sorry. Then I've got some 3D printed ones that are like a buzz saw that I can put the tile on there. It looks like a saw blade that comes up. WizKids makes them one where the saws are swinging, the blades are swinging from off of the thing, so you just take it and put it on, and you can swing the. Dwarven Forge also has magnetic walls where you can have flame traps that come out from the side that shoot flames, from there. Also spears and spikes and stuff that come out. So yeah, there's plenty of terrain traps that are out there. So, or you can pull the tiles off, and you can have negative space terrain underneath it, like little mats that have like lava, or it could have acid or something like that. So it's covered by the terrain, but when they step on it, it breaks through. I just pull the tile off, and you fall into this hole, and this thing's there. Obviously, like any good game master, you want to give some kind of a hint so that if they're paying attention, that doesn't change because because you have terrain. So Dwarven Forge. Correct. It's not to punish them. It's to make them think. Dwarven Forge has secret doors and stuff where it's built into the walls, so you can't see it, but then you can pop it open, and the part of the wall slides, or slides up this way. So, I love that kind of stuff. It's fantastic. And what I've done sometimes is so that it's harder for them to metagame. Is they're in a room, there might be a secret door in there that's to an area that on the gameplay table it looks like there's nothing there. So you would think, I wouldn't look if you're metagaming, but I can have a secret door there that leads to a room, and I have that room on a terrain tray, like a 12 by 12, and I just pop it in like that. So it keeps them on their toes. They can't always trust their eyes.
That's a good tip. I like it. Anything to add, Professor, about that?
No, that goes all the way back to 1980s when we were drawing out the map of the dungeon we were in, and wait, there's a hole there. There's got to be something in there. Now we got to find a secret door because we were mapping every 10 foot.
Yeah,
nice.
Those were the days.
I have a new thing here. We have the lightning bolt round. I'll ask you a few questions I came up with. Favorite dice color? Are you a dice goblin?
I'm not a dice goblin anymore. I have black dice with white letters, and they've got skulls on them for the 20s or for whatever the highest number is. So, yep, that's the.
Actually, at the table, we got a few guys. We're like, will you pick a dice that you can see? You don't have to pick it up. You have to. One of the players is like it's white on white, and like he's like this with the dice. Like I can't see.
We're gonna buy him the light up ones, Roy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to buy him the light up ones. Yeah, that's John. Yeah. So shout out to John, Grom the Fowl, the best half orc leader of our group ever. Right, he's really doing a good job, John, for telling a story because he likes to write. And I have him to do a recap, but he tells the story from his point of view. Mm-hmm. Once again, I had to say it, and it's pretty hysterical.
He's always the hero.
It's egocentric, yeah.
Todd, first character you played in Dungeons and Dragons?
It was a dwarf, and I think his name was something like Barg or some big. I know Bargle is in the D&D BX set, but I think it was like Barg or something like that. But it was just a dwarf. And in BX, there wasn't a race and a class. It was just a dwarf was basically a dwarven fighter, but it wasn't called that. It was just a dwarf. So yep, it was a dwarf.
Dwarf elf fighter. Yep.
Yeah. No, it was Targ. Targ. It was Targ. Yep.
Nice. Me and the professor were just discussing that. I want to make a gnome illusionist for a camp. A gnome illusionist, maybe. He's like, oh, gnomes were only able to be illusionists back in the day. That was like right in advance. It was just that.
Yeah.
That. You have a favorite D&D class to play? I know your favorite dungeon master. Or now, do you have a favorite D&D class in general? Just as a game master or a player.
With 5e, when I played, because you can multi-class in 5e, my favorite combination was a warlock and swashbuckler rogue. And the reason is because the swashbuckler rogue got benefits to initiative from the charisma, right? And obviously charisma is a spell casting like that. So he could cast darkness on himself, be in the darkness, and then the warlock has the devil sight that he can see in it. So now he's attacking at advantage, which means he can sneak attack. So he gets a damage dice. And then you also have the Booming Blade cantrip, so you can cast it over and over again that does about a damage. And then when the guy tries to move, he takes more damage. So I'm attacking at advantage every round to do double sneak attack, your backstab damage and your Booming Blade, and I can do it infinitely.
That's a devilish build. Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty demonic. And then when you're in non-combat, because you have a high charisma, you're fantastic in role-playing situations as well. So it was like a really good all-around character, except for obviously he wasn't much for healing, but he's a warlock. Nobody's really looking for him for healing. So
that's it. How about how do you feel like critical hits or natural ones affect the game? Crits are crits, but do you when somebody rolls a 1, do you give them an extra fumble or an extra change of story roll as a game master?
So I do a thing. D&D and from its longest time, the armor class has always been static, right? Whether it was ascending or descending, just whatever the armor class is, whatever the armor class was. Yeah. I've been doing since I played 5e, maybe 2 years into it, I came up with this rule, and then I brought it over into Shadowdark, where I take your armor class and I subtract 10 from it. So if you've got a 16 armor class, your defensive bonus is 6. Okay. Mm-hmm. When I attack you as a monster, you're going to roll your d20 and you're going to add 6 to it. It's the same exact thing. It's statistically, your average roll is a 10. Right. So now what that does is because if you had a static armor class, it's kind of like I'm always, right, everything is perfect every time. But in combat, if the character rolls low, it could be that you're about to bring your blade up to defend yourself, but his blood and sweat splatter into your eyes, right? You can't see it so well. Right, or if you roll really high, like you see it, he telegraphs the attack. So it adds some variability in there. Now, why I say this is because if you roll a nat 1 when you're defending, you totally blow your defense, and the guy gets a second free attack on you. If you roll a nat 20 on your defense, not only do you block it, but you get a free counter attack against that guy. So I use it. And what that does is it keeps players from getting a little too comfortable during combat, because you never know when a bad series of rolls might change everything completely. So
also
that's why I use
also engages the player on the enemy's turn. So if they're far out of their initiative, it keeps them in the game.
Correct. And it can work the other way. You can roll low, but my attack roll could be even lower, and you could still end up succeeding. Right. You see what I'm saying? It's just that you've got and it's easier for me to role play what's happening because I've got a number that's changing in your defense in combat, as opposed to your armor class 16, you blocked it, you dodged it.
And tell a story about the combat with the dice rolls.
Correct. You go to block the thing, but when you brace your back foot, it stumbles on some rubble and your knee gives way, and the blade cuts through and slams into your arm, and you take 3 hit points of damage. Right, it's easier for me to interpret the dice if I've got a rolling number as opposed to just a static RAC.
And I like how you just fell into the natural game master role of describing the situation as we talk about this. That does make it sound more dynamic, like a back and forth. I like that.
It's statistically the same, and I found, ironically, the game actually goes faster. People think it's going to take longer because you're rolling dice. It's now you get to play twice per round, because when you get attacked, now you get to roll dice again. And there's even a chance you might get a free counter attack. So I notice it also keeps people more focused, because instead it's just like, oh, they're attacking me. Okay, I'm literally waiting to see whether or not I'm writing how many hit points I lost. Yeah. Now you get to actually do something.
And people like to roll dice. You want to roll that 20-sided dice.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So that's how I do crits and ones.
You have a certain favorite realm, Forgotten Realms, Kryn, anything like that? Homebrew that you made?
It's all homebrew.
Did you have a homebrew world? Did you kind of create something?
I do. It's basically it's kind of put together from stuff from the real world. Imagine colonial America, okay, with Britain still ruling it, right? But there's a colony, except for now it's a medieval world. So the empire's across the ocean. There's a medieval world, and then there's this whole land that hasn't been explored to the west, which is and the empire had managed to push in certain far for a couple of hundred years, but eventually the natives and the monsters pushed them back. And so there's all these old keeps and mines and forts and stuff like that are abandoned now, that have been taken over by, and so it could be that monsters filled them. It could be that cultists or necromancers have gone in the area. And so you've got your coastal lands, which are safe. You've got your borderlands, which are safe for, adventures. And then you've got totally unexplored beyond that. So there's all this room and then you've got room for intrigue in the cities. There's rebels that are like, we don't need to be ruled by the empire. So do you want to join those guys and start doing sabotage missions against this? So I basically took the real world and I mapped it onto a fantasy thing. And that gives me an open map to do whatever I want. Out in the ocean, crossing the ships and stuff like that, that's perfect for piracy going on. So if they want to have that kind of stuff. So I just took that and I made that, my world.
Is this all on paper, or do you have, we use a thing called Legend Keeper. We're making our own world too. It's called the World Everywhere. Yeah. But we've been doing Legend Keeper and putting stuff and doing the maps online. And it's been a new, interesting, fun way to keep track of stuff and add. Is it in Todd's head? Is it on paper? Is it online somewhere?
The base of it is on paper. The stuff that I give to the players, I give the players at the beginning of a campaign what I call a framework of expectation. And the framework of expectation gives you everything as far as this is what's expected of the players. This is the system that I'm going to use. Any homebrew rules are written out so you can see exactly what they are, how I handle death, so there's no question about the way that get handled. If there's resurrection, what happens at 0 hit points, all that stuff. Anything basically that could end a campaign due to a hurt feeling or a misunderstanding is all laid out. So the first time you play, all that's, and you agree, yes, this is okay. This is how I'm going to play. And if it's not your style, you don't waste my time and I don't waste your time. This isn't the right campaign for me. And they go on. So that's all in there. But then also the basics of the game world are in there, just that overview that I gave. And then after that, it's filling in the blanks because I don't have anything else written up because I don't know what the players say they're going to want to do. And I give myself wide open spaces to imagine whole new stuff that nobody's ever done before. Hopefully nobody's ever done before. Go ahead.
I won't keep it too much longer, but speaking of homebrew rules, I want to share a homebrew with you that we use, and I like to hear maybe your version of it. So in our world, if you get to 0 hit points, then when you get back up, you have 1 level of exhaustion. So it slows down the thing, or if you have to make a death save, right?
It's when you go to 0. It's my fault because I played a monk in our last campaign who would run up in front of the big bad guy and punch him 17 times and get smacked to the ground. And then the healer would be like, 2 hit points. And I'd stand up and punch him 17 times and get smacked to the ground.
What I call whack-a-mole problem.
Right. And I brought it up to our Game Master Dave. I was like, you know what? We got to find a way around that. And that's how we introduced every time you get dropped, you get a level of exhaustion. And it's come up a few times because they made exhaustion matter.
Yeah, I was up to next 3 at one point. I had 3 levels of exhaustion, and at 6 you're dead. I was up and down, healed, this and that. I was like all dizzy and stuff, and I was trying to cast. I was -6 and half movement, and it made a difference. I was scared, I was scared. I got jumped.
I think it's a fantastic. I think first off, I think it's a fantastic rule because 5e has what I call the whack-a-mole problem, which is exactly what you described. It's like, and especially if you've got a grave cleric, they wait for you to drop because when they heal them, it's a max heal.
Yeah.
So everybody's either dead or full hit points, and you know what I mean. It's so, and the spell's guaranteed to go off. So the fear of death is really, really kind of slim when you've got a grave cleric, especially. So what I used to do was when I was playing 5e. Was I had these big Reaper miniatures, like it's big, and they've got their sides or whatever it is. Yeah. And whenever the players went down to 0, what I would do is I would take that miniature, I put them on the table 30 feet away, right? And And I would say your character wakes up, and you know when Frodo would put on the ring in Lord of the Rings, and he wakes up and he sees the world, I go, that's what you see, because your spirit is halfway between this world and the spirit world. You can see what's going on. You see the Reaper, and you've got to make your death saves. Every time you failed, the Reaper would get 10 feet closer, and once it got to you, it would cut the silver cord, and you would die, and you would go blah blah blah. And then, similar to what you did, I didn't do lines of exhaustion, which was probably a better idea, but you had to make a con check, DC 12, and if you failed that, then I had a table that you would roll on, and you would get some disability, whatever that might be. It might be, now it could be you're just dazed for a couple of rounds. It could be that, you lose an eye in your perceptions or not, your perception score. So, and depending on how bad you rolled is how worse it could be. So it could be a thing where it doesn't affect you at all, or it could be that, your character loses a hand or something crazy like that.
We amped it up by 1 and made all death saves hidden, and only the game master sees them.
Oh, nice.
So, because otherwise it was, he passed his first one. He's got to fail 3. We don't have to heal him this round. Took out that whole metagaming also.
So what Shadow Dark was, the rules as written for Shadow Dark is when you go down to 0, I roll a D4 behind the DM screen. That's how many rounds you got plus your con bonus. And the players don't know what that number is. The only thing they might know is, well, he's got a +1 for a con, or he's got, and if you've got a -1 for con, you might, just have that one round.
Already be done.
And I don't, right. Wow. And I don't give them any, well, it looked like I'm like, he's down and he's not breathing. So it's up to you to how soon you're going to get to him, because you've got maybe 1 to 4 rounds to get there. Yep. Yeah, but I love the idea of using exhaustion. I think that's fantastic. It's really simple. Everybody understands it. As soon as you say the rule, everybody knows how it works. And I think those are the best homebrew rules.
Yeah, and if it's a long drawn out fight, again, when you hit that 6, you're dead. There's no spell bringing you back. Then you have to go to the raised dead and resurrection, all that stuff. Yep. The heals aren't going to do it at that point.
Correct.
And we got close. We got to 3 or 4 one time. We get hit, poison, drop. Get up with a couple hit points. You look around, you're fighting, and all of a sudden you get clipped by something else, and you drop again. You're like, it's a rough day. So Todd, what's next for yourself for Terrain? Are you done collecting? And what's next for the Creative Adventures Tables Facebook group?
So personally, I think I'm done collecting because the storage says no. So until I move to a bigger house, which is not, anytime, it's probably after I retire, which is like 10 years from now, that what I've got is what I've got. I can't really think of anything else to add. I've got sci-fi. I can't think of a thing that I need to do that I need some terrain for, to be completely honest with you. So it's it's taken 10 years and a whole lot of, but I'm finally at that point. I'm like, I don't even go browsing through to look for new stuff, because I just don't, I'm good. Whatever it is, I'm good. So I'm happy on that. And I'm just looking forward to, okay, great. All the creative ways that I'm using it. How can I use this the way that my players haven't seen it before? That's a neat, get them interested in the game. As far as creative adventure tables, I'm still growing it. I still post. Obviously, the growth has slowed down. Like I said, it's maybe 50, 100 people per week, which still is not bad by any means. Sure. But once you get to that 50K mark, there are very few groups that are much larger than that. You've got a few. All Things D&D, I think, is like 90-something K, but that's All Things D&D. It's not a niche thing of just terrain, right? If you scroll through creative adventure tables, you're not going to see anything. You're not going to see dice promotions. You're not going to see character portrait promotions. You're not going to see memes. You're not going to see any of that stuff. It's literally focused on just the terrain. And the advantage of that is you can just scroll through, and in 5 minutes, you could probably see 20 amazing things and come up with an idea for your own campaign. Even if you're not using terrain, you could see something go, man, that looks like a cool story. That's an adventure idea. It doesn't matter whether you're using terrain. If it inspires you, and that's a tagline of the group, is creativity runs on inspiration. If it inspires you to come up with a story, then it served its purpose. So that's basically what we're doing. And also, if you'll look, because I keep it focused on that thing, there's literally only 3 admins on that entire thing. There's no moderators. There's 3 admins. And you're not going to find any flame wars. You're not going to find, maybe once every 4 months, I'm going to say, I have to delete a comment because somebody says something rude. It's a very PG group. We don't get into politics. We just stay. You can get in that group and you don't have to worry about anything that's going to be stressful. It's just going to be cool ideas. So I'm kind of good with that. I feel like I got lucky.
That's awesome, and kudos for being able to keep it that way.
Thank you.
That's
Appreciate
a
that.
trick on Facebook. So
Yes, it is.
So if you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, links will be down below. You also have a YouTube channel, Todd Putnam, and you're also on Instagram at Todd Michael Putnam. And but really, join the Facebook group if you're watching this or listening on a podcast. Links will be down below. And if you need to contact Todd, you can probably get through him through Instagram, or maybe just send a message on Facebook if you have any questions. And thanks for coming on, Todd. It was great talking to you. I appreciate it. I'll send you a copy of this video and like some little AI clips you use however you want. I know you're not really promoting anything, you're not really selling anything. We just want to have a chance to talk about D&D and terrain, and it's super inspiring. We want to have a collection like that.
That's what I love talking about. I don't need to be selling anything. I just like talking about it and learning from other people. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Todd, can we put a link to the video in the group? Any problem with that?
Pardon me?
Can we put a link to the video in the group? Is there any problem?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Sure.
Great.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so this will be posted in 2 weeks on a Sunday. This Sunday coming up, we have Caliber Experiences. Then we're going to follow up with Todd's group, the Facebook Creative Adventures table. You can follow me, DM Roy, on Instagram at Dark Alchemy Limited. That's Dark Alchemy Ltd. I'm there with the professor, my fellow Dark Alchemist. Our forever DM is DM Evanson. That's DM_Evanson, EVENSEN. Adventurers want to subscribe today. So get that one there. It's a ticker. So StreamYard added a new ticker. Help our channel grow. We will be at StravaCon November 15th at the Huntington Hilton on Long Island. Todd, where are you located? Can I ask just a general vicinity, state?
Sure, Southwest Florida.
Oh, okay. I get
near Fort Myers.
I know it. I get to Ocala once in a while down there.
Okay.
So
that's not far. That's maybe 3 hours away, a couple hours away.
All that terrain is tucked away and air conditioned and safe. It's not going to melt, right?
No, it's well cared for. Yep.
Yeah, that's a parting question. And I don't know. I mean, I know you're not repping Dwarven Forge. What is Dwarven Forge made out of? It's so indestructible. Is it dental plaster? Is it some resin?
No, they have a proprietary material, I think.
Correct.
Name for it. I think they call it Dwarvenite or something like that.
Yeah, they do call it Dwarvenites, and it is a proprietary material. And they're not lying when they say that stuff is nearly indestructible. If you break a piece of Dwarven Forge, you worked at it, like you sweated during the process of trying to break it, or you have like a steam powered press or something, but that stuff is just not going to break. And I'm not sponsored by them. I'm not, you know what I mean? I don't get a dime. That's not, as far as, but I'm just telling you from my experience, I've never had a piece break. So, it's expensive, but you never have to replace it.
I'm going to end the stream here. If you stay on 1 second, Todd, we'll talk in the green room. And thanks once again. Follow Todd on his awesome Facebook page. And Professor, thank you for joining us tonight. I appreciate it. Until next time, I hope everybody gets to play some D&D this week. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.